This is not the path of exile we set out to make. This sentiment was summed up by a member of our design team who recently said we don't want to take away the feeling of closing your eyes and exalting an item scared to see whether you ruin it or not. Dude, that's literally a bad thing. Oh my god, what is that sentence? But yeah. From what I saw from like the titles of some of the Reddit threads, the reason why there's gonna be a big gap, and I would appreciate anybody who is listening to this to focus on the fact that sometimes I'm gonna say what I think I would like personally, and then what I actually believe is good for the game are two completely separate things, okay? But yeah. We're going to be making some further changes to the harvest crafting with the release of 3.14 in April. In short, we're concerned by how deterministic some harvest crafts are and how easily players can craft near perfect items. Alright, I already disagree with this. Okay. So it's like impossible to balance this because there's such a vast variety of players playing Path of Exile, okay? And there's people who play for 2 hours a day and utilize harvest to its best possible like outcome. And then there's people who play 2 hours a day and they haven't even been in maps. And like there's obviously the people who play fucking 20 hours a day. And then there's the people who play 20 hours a day and don't accomplish shit. This whole harvest is like a theoretical situation for them. And unfortunately, from my perspective, the crafting of near perfect items through harvest is like probably theoretical for 99.9% of the people actually taking part in this argument. But then by them saying this is something like that, like this is how easily players as a whole can craft this, by saying this, they are applying it to the community as a whole, which is just not true. Harvest doesn't exist for like 99% of the community, okay? And then for like the maybe 0.1% of it, it actually does something, all right? Ugh. So I don't know. I don't like the way this is worded already, but yeah. We don't feel like this is consistent with how Path of Exiles itemization should work. Oh no. So just to actually preface this too, I'm a huge fan of deterministic crafting. I think Path of Exiles like click Chaos Orb, oh too bad system is not a system. Crafting doesn't exist in this game. It's awful. And deterministic crafting is cool, but it doesn't need to be done through harvest as it is very invasive to every player's endgame. It's the same reason why I didn't like fossils, right? Because I didn't want to look for fossils. I hate it. Rise equals Reddit? Oh, am I a Redditor? I don't even know how that would resemble. I think Reddit would hate all of this. I don't think I hate any of it so far. I mean, I hate the way they word some things, but I don't actually hate the... PoE doesn't have crafting. Like, that I can stand by. Yeah. Before we detail what changes are coming, we want to explain a bit about Harvest's initial implementation and our design philosophy around items and crafting. Oh yeah, I guess to finish that thought. I didn't like fossil crafting because you would run low-level zones on level 30 characters to get the best gear in the game, and I don't think that's what it should be. I don't think Harvest should be that either, where your character gets to a point where the only reasonable way of progressing your character is running Harvest over and over. I think that Octavian had the best solution of like spreading that out across multiple different systems, but I think those systems would need to be looked into as well. It's not as easy like as putting it on an essence or putting it on a fossil or anything like that. I think it's an unrealistic solution because it's never actually going to be happening. But yeah, our initial plan for harvest crafting using currency items like exalted orbs or chaos orbs on your gear is powerful. Risky and exciting way to improve it. It's not exciting. Using chaos orbs on your gear is exciting. It's exciting. No, It's annoying. It's frustrating. It's just so aggravating. Maybe they're trying to say in like perspective of picking shit off the ground or something. They can't genuinely believe that just like spamming Chaos Orbs or using Exalted Orbs on gears like applies to anybody really. Who does this? Like realistically, outside of SSF, who actually sits there and to craft their gear spams Chaos Orbs as opposed to buying their items or like uses their Exalted Orbs to then create like the item that they're looking for? Mathel does it? Oh, fuck off. No, he does not. It just doesn't happen.
Slam your desk so I can
Outside of SSF, only plays SSF. Bitch, I've played more Trade League in this game than you will play Path of Exile as a whole for the rest of your life, okay? I have like 15,000 hours of Trade League. Can you shut the fuck up, you? And yeah, I just don't think exalting, and I guess exalting is risky. Chaos Orbing is not risky. It's dumb. It's just inefficient. It's stupid. Yeah. Because these items work equally on both low and high level equipment. On low level equipment, I'd agree with that. It's generally considered best to save them until you're crafting your endgame gear. You're never crafting your fucking endgame gear. You fucking buy it. You buy your endgame gear. Nobody crafts their endgame gear unless they're MP and the gear that they're looking for isn't available on the market. The average player doesn't craft their gear, and they especially don't do it by spamming Chaos Orbs. They do it by purchasing things to spam items with, sure, with those Chaos Orbs and Exalted Orbs. They don't fucking click their Chaos Orb on the item over and over, and then they exalt the item, and then they go, I don't like this item. You know what? Let me spam some more Chaos Orbs, and they do it all over again. Like, that just doesn't happen. Nobody does this. Yeah, you do this shit in SSF. Absolutely. SSF, fuck yeah, dude, you do this. That's one of the greatest things about SSF, that you're able to do this, and it's a logical choice to do. Although, not really anymore. I mean, with Chaos or with Exalted Orbs, sure. Again, the premise of what they're saying so far is just like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. In either case, using valuable currency items in your leveling gear is generally perceived to be non-optimal. But then they recognize that the whole non-optimal argument. We were designing the craft mechanic that would be... When we were designing the crafting mechanics that would be the reward system for Harvest League, we wanted to experiment with a system that allowed you to craft items while leveling, using the equivalent of powerful currency like Exalted Orbs. That's very smart. I think that's cool. Yeah. So that players could get the experience of using valuable currency items without feeling bad that they were missing out on future value. Okay, yeah, I can get behind that. I think it definitely worked in that capacity. You have been confirmed to be a streamer lead, therefore you're not allowed to have an opinion on current subject. True. Personally, about like how GGG approaches any of this stuff, personally, it just doesn't affect me. Like, it just does not in any way, because none of this impacts SSF, really. How they like think about pushing this stuff forward. It's just unrealistic to think about this as the community as a whole. Like, again, to me, it was very surprising that specifically add X was not removed. That was like very weird to me. Like, the solution that I proposed to a lot of harvest stuff being too powerful was a system of blocking stuff more so than adding stuff. Okay. Upon playing the league, the crafting side of it was an immediate hit. Players easily filled gaps in their builds while leveling and made many mirror-worthy items. As our concern over this grew, discussions started about how to adjust things when we eventually integrated into the core game.
Out right now.
Okay, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, Decided to integrate Harvest into the core game as map-only content. Harvest crafting while leveling went fine during the Harvest League, but pretty much every league has some item acquisition mechanic that occurs while leveling, so we didn't think it was necessary to have Harvest on top. I think Harvest was the only leveling mechanic that's worked in the history of Path of Exile, to be honest. Everything else was either is like just inefficient and not rewarding enough, or too difficult, or too spiky. I don't know. It just, nothing really works in the league that it was released. Rituals are very not smart to do while leveling. Then explain. Yeah, it just takes up too much time compared to the amount of rewards that you get. You can get by as a like more experienced player in much more efficient ways. You tend to over level. You spend too much time doing it. It's not good XP at all. You have to do it multiple times a zone. A lot of the leveling zones aren't the way you do them in maps, which means that you don't full clear. Again, it can be enjoyable to do. It can be worthwhile for you to do. That doesn't make it efficient, you know? The result of both of these factors was that players had access to basically unlimited medium power crafting and had to RNG hunt the best craft, which they could store for later. Yeah, absolutely. Players also expressed frustration that the most effective way to get the best items Path of Exile was to join a Discord channel and try to trade for these incredibly crucial items. Oh, okay. I see the problem. I see why this is happening then. It's the Discord channel thing. They think that the Discord channel is basically the fucking D3 auction house. I was wondering, like at some point I knew that I'm gonna read something that was like so against how GGG sees Path of Exile itemization that that's going to be like the thing that basically pushed it. And it's pretty much this. I mean, it's literally that. It's just the Discord channel thing. It's interesting to me also, though. Like, I can see how that's frustrating, but was that really the feedback that they were getting? Players expressed frustration that the most effective way to get best items was to join a Discord server. What if the most effective way of getting items were to join an in-game trade channel? I wonder if they would have been okay with that. Never used the Discord, Reddit tag. On Reddit, yes. Yeah, I mean, I can see how this would have been something where, yeah, Redditors would be upset about. Because the PoE Reddit is really like a bunch of D3 players that like came together and spewed the same opinion over and over in a massive circle jerk. So I can totally see how they would be like wary of this sort of situation. And I mean, that's been like statistically proven that the PoE Reddit is essentially like 80% of the comments on the PoE Reddit are made by like 500 of the same people who are just saying the same fucking shit and going in circles. And then other people go into it and they think to themselves, am I fucking crazy or are they? Like, what is happening? I mean, there's so many people agreeing with each other here, so maybe I'm the crazy one. But then you realize that it's literally like a group of 500 people out of like I don't even know how many people are on the PoE Reddit. A lot? 500,000 people that are just, yeah, saying the same shit over and over. I don't think what they said about Discord is quite correct. I think it's more of an issue of that there was no other alternative than Discord. Yeah, I mean, I can totally see this. Again, it boils down to the fact that there's so many people, so many different people playing Path of Exile in so many different ways, right? But like when the Discord server is something that determines your entire Path of Exile experience, which some people definitely felt that way. I mean, I can see how it would be a fucking incredibly frustrating experience. I would hate to be a part of that personally. I think, aside from it affecting me personally, I think it's unhealthy for the game too. It's just that GGG has a much stronger opinion about this sort of stuff than I do, while simultaneously not putting any of the stuff that really should be in-game, like the trade website and whatnot. But, I mean, that's a separate argument. First part of that, of this that concerned us was Harvest was critical in making the best items and hence made many other game systems obsolete. They think their old crafting system got obsolete by Harvest. I mean, I'd argue that the old crafting systems made themselves obsolete by not being good systems 5 years later into Path of Exile's development. But, I mean, shit. Oddly enough, Harvest, to me, the essences are the one thing that works. Realistically. And it's probably one of the oldest crafting systems in PoE. Because you can guarantee tier 1 modifiers, or sometimes even better, for a lot of items with that. It's just that now it being a lot more accessible kind of makes it more functional. The system by itself doesn't work, but the new Atlas changes do make it work. You know, I think there's always going to be a system that is going to be the best, which essentially the people who are forced to do Harvest are going to be forced into doing that. But that system can be a lot better than running level 30 zones on like a level 30 character and fucking speedrunning fossils. Like that shit just, yeah. No, old system became obsolete. With Harvest, they all became infinitely better. With Harvest, that is the issue. They're much less impactful without Harvest. Old systems are less impactful without Harvest. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about add, remove. But the reality is, I know that somewhere in here there's add, remove getting removed. Or at least adding, like exalting with Harvest is getting removed. Again, I thought that that's not even going to go in with the new iteration of Harvest, but it did. So, I mean, I'd bet my nutsack that that's going bye-bye. Hold it in? Wait, really? Are they not? Nah, I'd be shocked. I think basically, I mean, the smart thing for them to do, from what I'm reading so far and what their mentality is, would be remove exalting with Harvest. I mean, I hate to say it, but they're probably gonna do something with like influenced items. I don't know, limit it in some way, maybe to like one mod, or fucking maybe remove it entirely, which I personally highly disagree with, but I can see GGG doing something like that. It's like the most interesting items. Whenever there's like the most interesting item, they always want to make it the hardest to obtain. But I don't think spamming currency on items makes it hard to obtain. It just makes it fucking annoying. But GGG thinks that it's hard. And like, therefore, they're willing to do changes like that. I don't know. We'll see. A problem with all of this can be summarized with the following thought. Why would I use regular Exalted Divine Annul Orb when I can get one through Harvest that has a deterministic result? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think that my issue with this boils down to their perception of Exalts and Chaos Orbs, and yeah, that being fun, which is not. I think Annuls are fun.
Can clearly be seen in this man stalling 10 minutes on a sentence.
Listen, this is a big discussion from like a lot of different perspectives, so I mean, I'm gonna try and make it as nuanced as I can from like my point of view. If I see Harvest as a shit system, which I don't think it's great because of its power level, but the game's better off with it than without it, and that's strictly due to the fact that the old systems are incredibly outdated, like to a ridiculous degree outdated. But if they see them as valid systems, then yeah, I can see how this is a genuine concern. At its core, Path of Exile is a game about acquisition of powerful items. Well then, what the Hold on. Wait a minute. How can you like YOLO this entire thing with this one sentence? When we're designing Path of Exile, a critical aspect of item acquisition is that it is through random rather than deterministic ways. Critical aspect of item acquisition. Yeah, but like, that changes so much with the addition of mods, with the addition of Maven Orb, the addition of Awakener Orb, influenced items, item bases, item levels. Like, that changes so much. How can you talk about Path of Exile initial design and its critical aspect when we're fucking 8 years down the line in like the most power creepy game in like any game's fucking history? I don't know. How can you have the same mentality? I feel like you really have to look back at these systems and do things to them, which again would be the most optimal thing. That was something that Octavian proposed on Bake last, but they're just not willing to fucking do it, you know? Like, you have the choice of either going forward and making the new stuff that you designed yourself, making the old stuff obsolete, or you look back at the old stuff if you think it's better and like making it so that it's functional in 2021, bro. You can't just be like, yeah, old stuff's shitty, but why not? And I'd love for them to do that, to put in like the actual work into doing this stuff. I would fucking remove Harvest from the game without a thought. Absolutely get rid of it if I had like some sort of guarantee from them that they're at least looking into modifying the already existing systems. But I know they won't. It just won't happen. They might be planning on it, but it never will happen. They're planning on a million different things. They'll never find the perfect solution for it. They'll therefore never do it. I'd remove that shit in a heartbeat, bro. When you defeat monsters and bosses, you receive random items. When you approach Kadira for a valuable item, you're offered a random one rather than the one you can control. When you craft an item, you receive a random modifier. In limited cases where you can choose a specific modifier, it's actually worse than what you could have been rolled randomly. What could have been rolled randomly? Even game systems specifically intended to involve determinism, such as divination cards and incubators, still have amount of luck involved. Come on. It's also important that items are hard to perfect. I mean, this I absolutely agree with. I mean, yeah. I don't think you realistically accomplish that in a sensible amount of time for like the average Path of Exile player at all. But maybe they don't mean perfect as imperfect. They mean like 80% perfect, and to them that's perfect. Yeah. Ideally, there is significant diminishing returns in the currency item crafting process, which lets most players get something good enough relatively easily. Yeah, for sure. This I can totally see. What's coming across again? Ideally, there's significant diminishing returns in the currency item crafting process, which lets most players get something good enough relatively easily, and the expert players can show off with really good items that took a lot of effort to make. Okay, so they are removing the ad for sure. Obtaining perfect items is ideally close to impossible, with very few players able to claim that they have such valuable treasures. And they said people were printing perfect items. I mean, that's kind of what they opened up with, which I thought was bullshit. But yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't... So far, I don't understand who this is targeted at. Right? Because if they're talking about perfect items now, they're talking about people like MP. People like MP will not be affected by this. Okay? Like, if you're trying to cut back on the gap between the top players and like the average players, this is doing the opposite. Because at least now the average player can have like an above average item through Harvest, while the fucking master gamer is always going to have the best item anyway. So like, who are you targeting this with? Like, what is the point? We feel that the current state of harvest crafting runs against both of these important philosophies. We know that many players would love us to keep deterministic crafting in the game because it enables them to complete their items far more quickly than they otherwise would. It doesn't though. Man, I don't know. Maybe it's a matter of people getting items Like, how can this be the case when the current league and Harvest have had like the greatest player retentions of all time? That's the thing. I feel like, from what I've observed anyway, for many people, the prospect of always being able to generate like one more modifier on their single item, even though it's going to take them like 2 or 3 weeks sometimes to realistically accomplish that, like that's something good enough for them to keep playing the game. But maybe it gets to a point where people get like slightly above average items and they're like, yeah, my character's complete, fuck it. Maybe that's what the statistics show, that they're just, yeah, the middle ground is just not there. Things got too easy to obtain. I just can't see how that's the case for the average player. I just can't see it. There's always more to complete. Maybe it's a matter of like what you're looking to achieve. Because I think there's definitely an issue in Path of Exile where a lot of people try to overgear content. And they're like, I'm unable to do this content with my character unless I obtain these items. Which is like literally not the case. But it doesn't matter if that's the case. It matters if that's the mentality of the people playing the game, right? Like perception is everything. Again, I do see how it could be like a big difference between the players, for sure. For me, it definitely was the case where I enjoyed the game more because of every extra like item that I could pursue. But I don't know, my mentality is a little bit different too right now because of like how stagnant the meta is, at least on SSF. So that's very different. And I mean, also, obviously, it's very different for somebody who can actually just buy the craft, right? For sure. I think the big issue is the above average items, though. I think that's where a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't have anything more to look forward to. I've done all content with like my average items that literally required like 4 harvest crafts. I don't have to min-max. I don't have to like add remove. I don't have to have my item, you know, with fucking mana regeneration or something. They just don't care about it. They just get shit done. They feel like they've done everything and they move on. And I think, well, apparently there's enough of those players that, you know, GGG had to literally take a look at it, for sure. Which I can absolutely see that being the case on softcore trade, which is like 99% of the player base. Well, not 99, but like 90. Yeah. Who is average to you? The average player for me in PoE is somebody who's played for probably 2-3 leagues and plays like 2 hours a day, or maybe I should say like 10 hours a week, basically. Because if you're anything below or anything above that, I just don't see how any of this affects you. Because if you're below, you don't understand Harvest and you're not doing any of that anyway. And then if you're above it, then you're probably playing the game anyway. But that, I would imagine that's also the ballpark of like where the majority of the players switch out, right? Where like, yeah, they get replaced by the players who have played like 1 league. And then the players who have played 3 leagues leave the game because they're bored now. And like everything feels the same. And especially if you're having Harvest in that situation, yeah. Because people don't really... It always feels like in PoE, especially because it's so not new player friendly. It always feels like it's the same people playing every league and there's nobody new and there's like only people who announce that they're leaving. But the reality is that the game's player base switches out a lot. It rotates a lot. And I wonder, I'm assuming that people leave after like 2-3 leagues and they peace out and the game stops being fun for them, unless they peace out after 1. But if they don't peace out after 1 or like during the first one for them, then yeah, I think they do that. And then they leave, you know, for like 6 months and then maybe they come back for a league and they're like, oh, the game's the same, or oh, the game's completely new. They're trying to do something for like the largest group of people that gets affected by all of this, which is why they describe all of them so unanimously, even though many of us don't fit into this like makes mirror worthy items with harvest sort of perspective. Like, it just, yeah. Many of us don't fit into it, but yeah, read waggle. 14.4% open the map, 6% have to hit 90. Literally less than half of people who actually make it to 90. Endgame even hit 90. Yeah, but like, then I'm completely not including any of that, right? Like, I'm not gonna have this like, well, actually, Raiz, the average player doesn't even kill Brutus. Like, we're not talking about that, okay? Like, I'm talking about the average PoE player, not the average PoE person, right? Like, just so we're clear about that. Like, I'm completely not including people who play this game not at all, and the people who play this game fucking 20 hours a day. Because they're just not statistics, right? They're not, like, people like me. I'm just not a stat. There can be things that I prefer personally that affect me, but from the perspective of GGG, as much as Reddit would like to tell you otherwise, that they only listen to streamers and blah blah blah, I am just not a statistic. Right? They just don't listen to this sort of shit. They just don't. Like, it just doesn't happen. Which is why it's so popular to blame everything on streamers. Oh, GGG listens to streamers. They fucking don't, bro. They listen to whatever they think is right. Sometimes it's a circle jerk on Reddit. Sometimes it's a particular streamer that happens to share the opinion. And sometimes they don't care about either, and they have their own, you know, whatever they're thinking that is best for the game. Alright, we feel that the current state of harvest crafting runs against both of these important philosophies. We know that many players would love us to keep deterministic crafting in the game because it enables them to complete their items far more quickly than they otherwise would. But then there would quickly be nothing left to achieve. Yeah. It was an interesting experiment, and we understand that some players will likely be attached to this level of incredibly easy crafting. But it's not Path of Exile we set out to make. Oh, I hate how they're using this word. Like, again, I get where they're coming from, and I get the, like, deterministic, but easy? Crafting with harvest is easy as opposed to clicking a fucking chaos orb to get your shit. That's not hard. It's fucking annoying. It's shit. It's just not fun. There's nothing enjoyable about it. This is not the Path of Exile we set out to make. The sentiment was summed up by a member of our design team who recently said, we don't want to take away the feeling of closing your eyes and exalting an item, scared to see whether you ruin it or not. Dude, that's literally a bad thing. Oh my god, what is that sentence? Oh no. Dude, I was getting what they were talking about, but like, this sentence and like the chaos spamming and exalt spamming, I don't think they get like how bad this feels. It feels so bad. In a lot of ways, I would respect this, at least, if influenced items weren't a thing. But now that we have influenced items for like such a long time, how can you not adjust your mentality to this? Dude, this is why you play the game and not Diablo? Oh, so you're saying that because things were so easy in Harvest League, I was playing Diablo instead because it was so easy and I got so bored. I mean, again, my personal thing is not a stat, so like where I get with that is very, very different, right? But I play PoE for the multitude of brilliant decisions that they've made over the years and additions to the game and the constant evolution of the game. And sometimes it evolves in a way that I personally dislike. Sometimes it evolves in a way that I personally like. Sometimes it evolves in a way that's objectively like beneficial to the player base. Sometimes it has to evolve in a negative direction that then allows it to further improve in some time after, where they make short-term changes to benefit the game overall long-term. But then for them to say no to deterministic crafting and be so like avid about this being the right way to do things because it was too easy to get all those items. I don't know. I think we're talking about just two different things. I think ease of accomplishing perfect mirror items has nothing to do with any of this. And like exalting items is not a thing that people realistically do in those circumstances anyway. I think the core issue is that, again, the player who would take 2 months to kill a boss due to them having the idea that they need a certain degree of gear gets there a lot faster because Harvest enables you to make really fucking above average items with like 3 crafts. And that's definitely not good. And I think that's what they're kind of looking to target. But then, yeah, talking about this perfect item stuff and all that, it's just not realistic. Somebody who's only able to afford so much or who is looking to purchase like a specific unique item is not fucking exalting their items. They are not chaos spamming their items. The number one advice for anybody ever in any circumstance, whenever they were looking, like prior to Harvest, whenever they were looking to get money through crafting in Path of Exile was do not exalt your items. Don't chaos spam your items. Because it's just dumb. And there are still other systems that are cheaper, smarter, better, and faster, and less annoying than chaos spamming and exalting. Sometimes you're left with an item that you can only exalt, but the average fucking player will buy another item rather for 2 exalted orbs for 1 exalted orb rather than use them on the already existing item. That's like pretty okay. It just doesn't happen. People don't use their currency, which is what was so freeing to me when SSF released and why so many people appreciate it. Because you get to use your items. You have Chaos Orbs, you have Exalted Orbs, you fucking click them on your gear. But again, those people aren't a stat. They shouldn't be. Because there's not enough of them. But it's incredibly freeing. You can just do it and you don't feel like an idiot for getting 2 regeneration. Yeah, does it feel great? Would you have rather gotten fucking 40 lightning resistance? For sure. But that's really only where it's exciting. And none of this applies to the average player because the average player just fucking plays a sand. I don't know. I mean, again, I totally get where they're coming from. I think objectively, as much as I hate to say it from a personal perspective, they're correct. Because I can already see them going fucking overboard in any of this because I actually haven't seen any of the changes yet. So I can already see them probably going a little bit overboard with this stuff. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's going to be more like utility based off of Harvest. You kind of have to remove Harvest as a whole if you want to actually fully impact deterministic crafting. If you think deterministic crafting is bad, then just remove Harvest. Fuck. And that's what they said. Like, deterministic crafting is just bad. So yeah, as much as I personally disagree with some of this stuff, I think objectively, it is like better for the game, unfortunately. Previously, every seed in a patch granted an instance of that seed's craft. Now only some of the seeds do. So you're getting far fewer of the crafts that were overwhelming people with their quantity. Higher tier seeds are close to the 1-to-1 ratio from before. Wait, what? Previously, every seed in the patch granted an instance of that seed's craft. Now only some of the seeds do. You're basically not getting full patches anymore? You're getting far fewer of the crafts that were overwhelming people with their quantity. I don't think that has to do anything with quantity. Yeah, it's like less chaos spam. That's the thing. Like, if I have to fucking open a window and like drag the item and fucking click it 4 times, I don't care if I have to click it 4 times or 7 times. Don't try and make this about me, GGG. You're making this about yourself, okay? Trying to tell me that I'm being overwhelmed? I ain't getting overwhelmed. You just want to nerf it, okay? I'm still having to go through the same fucking annoying menu every time. And as much as I, again, think harvest is more beneficial than less for the game, it definitely could be done better, and it could be a much better system. And a large chunk of that is like all the annoying preparation and micromanagement and menu opening and all that shit. Because I really do hated that in Path of Exile. But don't put this shit on me. This is what you want to do. I'm not getting overwhelmed. How dare you? Higher tier seeds are close to 1-to-1 from before. Okay, that is cool. This part, because yeah, I mean, again, in the old harvest, it got to a point where people were even skipping the low quality seeds. But that's probably due to a problem that everybody's like base gear was too good already. Some mods that had overly deterministic behavior have been removed. Oh, here we go. These include all annulment mods. Oh, they did remove the annuls too. Other than the ones that remove a mod that isn't of a specific type before adding one of that type. And all type-specific divine mods. All annulment mods other than the ones that remove a mod that isn't of a specific type before adding one of that type. Wait, they're literally doing what I said? That's interesting. They're literally doing the thing that I thought would have been good for Harvest if they were to implement it. Interesting. I think that's still too strong, but yeah, I mean... it's less understandable for the average person as to how to do it. Yeah, it's my fault. For sure. I'm sure they watched Bay Class from 6 months ago and they were like, yeah, blocking is the way. All type specific divine mods. Crafts that add mods of specific types, like physical modifier, for example, of items that can now only be applied to non-influence items. Oh. Except for the existing mod that applies as influenced mod to an influenced item. Oh. Really? I mean, that's completely fine. What?
Quintus, fucking out.
Crafts that add... Am I misunderstanding this? I thought they would have fucking nuked the bejesus out of this. Crafts that add mods of specific types, like physical, can now only be applied to non-influenced items. I mean, it's boring, but I thought they would have went all out on this. Okay, well, shit. Interesting. And it's interesting in how boring it makes it. Because that's really like where the juice is. You ever tried to make something or like fracture something and you can't use it on influenced items and you're like, fuck, I can't make this, and this. So fucking annoying. Kind of what it's gonna be for everything now. But it's so weird because influenced items are already like the thing that you're... the one step above the average item that you're trying to make. So doesn't this go against what you want, which is the average player that doesn't take that extra step, being able to generate the item that's already above average? Like, this only annoys the people who are going to have access to people who, to like items that are influenced anyway, because they just are gonna fucking brute force it with sheer playtime. So I don't know. This is a weird one to me. Because it directly contradicts the thing that they were talking about before. But I don't know. Maybe I underestimate how many people actually use influenced items to craft outside of the really obvious ones. Because I thought that like the average person who just gets to red maps, or he even does red maps, maybe they'll carry like a Conqueror or something. They don't really make a whole lot of influence stuff outside of, again, the really like obvious big ones, right? They just have like a random pair of gloves with life and some resistance. You know, they don't use temple gloves, or they're not looking for essence gloves, or they're not looking to harvest craft like an influenced fucking extra damage item or anything like that. They just don't care about that sort of stuff. And their items already like way above average. Every item slot is influenced, fractured, or synthesized. Yeah, that might be the case for you. I don't think that's the case for like most people. That's the thing. Which is what I thought that they're trying to target with this. Most people. I think crafting shit on influenced items really is that step above. Chance of encountering a portal to Sacred Grove in a map has been increased by 60%. The chance of encountering a portal to the Sacred Grove in a map has been increased by 60%? Why? Is it about making... No, I think... Okay, because the reason why I don't get it, but I kind of do, is because if you want less menu, annoying, oppressive, overwhelming behavior, you give players less of it to do. But then you're giving more of it. But I think what's happening is they're giving more of it across the board. But then they're nerfing the Haywork and Proxima. And it's probably so that people don't have to like run the same regions over and over is what I'm assuming. So they have to like juice it across the board. And that's what they meant by adjusted. Because I don't think they're actually looking to make it so that more players are running Harvest. Because, yeah, I mean, regardless of whether you like Harvest, dislike, agree, disagree with it, I think across the board we can all agree that fucking going into a Harvest, once you've killed the mobs, actually sitting in the menu is fucking annoying. I don't know. The menu and like spending 20 minutes of figuring everything out is fucking annoying. And it doesn't matter if I have 4 or 6 crafts, I still have to fucking figure out what I'm gonna use that shit on. And that's the frustrating part. So I don't think they're looking to get more of it. They're just trying to make it more spread out. Yeah, I mean, the finishing thoughts are pretty much what Darky said. I think going forward, again, unfortunately from my own player perspective, so that's why I say unfortunately, this is something that's beneficial for the game. They got to the right conclusion, but with the wrong arguments, and overall long term, I think this will be beneficial for the growth of PoE, because the more people playing PoE, the more people being interested in the game, the more it continues to better for like people like me. But short term, I'll miss its current iteration. I feel like it could have lasted like another 2 leagues and then we would have nuked it. But then maybe they would have ran into the fossil problem, so it was just better to do it right now. I'm just kind of surprised about how this all didn't happen immediately after Harvest League and instead happened now. And the conclusions for this happened now and not after Harvest, because I feel like everything that they pretty much posted here was something that they already knew going into the current implementation of Harvest, and yet it is the way it is, which in a lot of ways could be a nod to the player base and them actually listening to different perspectives and trying something and finding a middle ground, which would be appreciated. But I mean, I just can't know that, right? I just can't know it.